Welcome to another episode of You&AI. We are here today with Katharina Peterwerth, VP Strategy at Siemens Energy in the grid technology business. I think a very exciting company, more than 100,000 employees, probably one of the fastest growing companies right now, clear stock market leader here in Europe, very important enabler of the energy transformation. And Katharina, I think we first met at Volkswagen when you led the global organizational development in a team of Herbert Diess. You've been a people and strategy leader in other organizations before. And I know you do a few more things than strategy in your role. So what do you think? What would be important to add to your introduction?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And true, we have a bit of a history together. And I guess it was the first time we met at Volkswagen back in 2019. So probably by now 6 years. So good that we now get to talk, actually. In my current role, because you were asking, yes, I do have not only strategic topics like strategy, sustainability, M&A, but I also have topics like marketing, more coming from a strategic perspective. I do have the topic of strategic digitization and AI, and then quality and safety. So quite a broad role, but it's wonderful to have that full picture and help the organization to get better from day to day.
Great. Thanks for joining us today. So let's talk about AI and particularly what role it plays in your life right now. How does your work week typically look like, and how do you interact with AI throughout the day?
Very good question. So first of all, and I reflected a little bit about this morning, actually, I can't think about a day without AI anymore. It just becomes so natural for me. And it very much depends how I use it, if I'm traveling, if I'm at home. But in any aspect, it's become part of my daily life. So what did I do this morning when I got to work? I opened up my laptop. I asked Copilot, so what do we have here for today? Please give me a short summary of the meetings coming up. Provide me with the pre-work, the pre-reads, so I have it all at hand and I feel like prepared for the day. Then I went off to make a coffee, so there was no robot helping me on that. That's still physical work I do. And then I got into the first meetings. When I write my emails, I usually ask Copilot to help me to maybe do the final wording and making sure I always meet the right tone. And this is that is just so much faster. I could do that myself, but it takes much more time. So there it helps actually a lot. Then basically we record all the meetings we do. And even if there are meetings I can't join, I'll later on have a look into the transcript, the AI notes. We get AI produced protocols and meeting minutes. So it's kind of always there, running with me the whole day long. Then there are a couple of other things, especially for travel planning, where I, of course, use it, get some ideas what to do. And then there are the bigger use cases. Whatever I get in terms of documents, strategy documents, I usually try to get a summary. I have a couple of agents now that help me to understand how good is a strategy document. I have an agent helping me to check the classical work I've done as associate partner at McKinsey, for example, checking are all sources on the slides, is the action title right? What could be a different message you can give? And this is something the agent does for me that tremendously speeds up the work. Yes, of course, I still go through the document and I have an own opinion, but it helps me to get things together. So AI is always there. Also in my day as a leader at Siemens Energy.
Wow, it sounds like you've hired quite a team of AI agents there already. And as it sounds like
I have really a few of them helping me the whole day long.
So it sounds like you also like experiment a lot and test things. So are there any areas where you are still a bit sobered or disappointed? Things you've tried out and it's like, it just doesn't work yet, but I would love to have AI applied, be applied there, but it's not there yet.
Of course, we have, and I have tons of ideas what we could do. And
Hmm.
there's a bit of a story. So this summer we started with what we call the AI homework. So every week in this Trade leadership team, we get a task, we get a homework, what we need to do. And we started very easy with very simple agents. We get to more complex tasks like writing a scientific paper. And in summer, we were asked to program a multi-agent system in Copilot Studio. And I can only say I was not that successful. So that's still on my list, really coming up with multi-agent systems in whatever system. Starting from next week, I'm going to have an AI coach. Everybody in the leadership team is going to have that. Young people from the organization who are helping us to get better. And my experience is once you start with that, it's so much fun. And you have a ton of ideas every day, which I just can't put into practice. There's so much to do. So I sometimes give it to the teams and ask them to make it happen. But yes, there's so many areas. And if I would go through my teams, in terms of strategy, portfolio strategies, there's a lot we can do where we can automate, where we can use AI. Same on the market data, on the competitor data, and basically in all what we do. Even if I look into employee health and safety, we are just talking about new safety trainings. And yes, we will see AI in those. Just imagine today we are just training people, telling them what to do and what not to do. That could be totally different. You could do simulations. You could have AI agents interacting with people, helping them to understand what it means if they act in a specific way. So yes, we do have tons of ideas, even in the office environment, but even more, of course, when we think about factory automation of our own factories, and then also of digital products, which we can bring to our customers. There we have much, much more ideas what we could do.
Yeah, great. And it seems like you really have momentum on that topic, right? And we currently meet a lot of leaders, work with a lot of organizations where there's also at least doubts, you could say, that there is a lot of buzz around these things, but it takes some time and effort to overcome the first barriers, maybe, and sometimes maybe the use cases you've hoped for don't work at all. So what do you think are the underlying drivers? What does it make work for you, that you not just have a lot of ideas, but you also get this into the leadership team? And yeah, it seems to be a very present and dynamic topic.
Pick it up from a company perspective, there's one thing that's important, and it's really try fast, fail fast. That's more important than we've ever seen that before, I'd say. If I take a broader view, I'd say we really need to have end-to-end processes. We need to think our processes from a customer perspective, making sure that even though we have a functional organization, our processes go from end to end. A customer wants to order a product, and we want this in the end to be a loyal customer. And that's the process. And if you map the AI use cases, but also the classic digital use cases along that value chains, you gain a far better understanding where it can add value. Because then you get out of this functional side of thinking where everybody does this small little use case, rather towards the broader use cases that create value for our customers. And this is especially important in the business processes. When I look into the factories, there's so much you can do. I just came back from China last week from our Shanghai factory, where we've partly automated the switchgear assembly, something a couple of years ago we would not have thought that it could be possible.
Hmm.
So we have robots there assembling many, many, many different variants of our switchgears, and that's amazing to see. And that's partly AI, but what we also see is we have heavy equipment. Our equipments are tons heavy, so it's not really the small stuff, it's big. And this is also advancement in technology we see. We can now work with those robots. They're partly AI driven. That helps a tremendous lot.
Hmm.
So also here, good progress, what we see, and we need that. We need that because we see the Chinese and the Asian competition coming also into the European and the US market, something that we would have not seen in the past, but the price pressure is rising. And unfortunately, we see a bigger openness towards getting Asian product also into the most critical infrastructure, which is in our case the grids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
and then we have the yes. Go ahead.
no, I observe exactly the same, and yet I think with industrial AI, it's one of the few areas where we still have actually not a bad starting point, right? To play and be part of the game. No.
I think so. I think so. I also talked to colleagues from Airbus Defense, for example. They are developing their AIs, especially when flying drones, autonomous vehicles. So there's a lot actually we can do
Yeah.
together, we can learn, and where we can maybe also do things together. And that brings me to the last field we have, that's our customer products. The electricity grids are becoming more and more complex. In the past, it used to be you had a point-to-point connection from generation to consumption. Now we have a generation that's distributed across the country, even in the sea, the offshore wind, and we get a much more complex grid. And to balance the load, for example, in those grids, this is a task where AI can definitely help, where AI can help to get a better understanding of the situation. The situation the equipment is in, weather conditions, conditions of generation, where do we have generation, where will we have generation within the next hours, and helping to put together the picture and then steering the load management of the grid. So also here we see a lot of really good use cases, not even to think about that we have our service technicians sometimes in really dangerous environments. We are in the high voltage area. And also there it's physical AI, where we want to have autonomous robots helping us to do the most dangerous maintenance works.
I mean, when I hear you talk about this, it seems so obvious and natural to use this next technological evolution and embed it everywhere. But what I see from an outside-in perspective, what I take from our conversation, that it's also really a cultural and a leadership topic that I think you do a lot to, yeah, not just force yourself in the leadership team to engage with AI and experiment, but really make sure everyone in your organization sees like this is coming. We all need to work on it, right? I think it's in your strategy, it's in your goals. I think that makes a big difference if I compare that to a lot of other companies where you might have some front runners, but it's still like this rather hesitant approach to it. So talking about these people more hesitant, maybe we slightly touched upon it already, maybe, but the big question: what's the ROI? What's the ROAI? I think is coming more and more. Again, it sounds very obvious and natural. The use cases you describe makes a lot of sense, but still, like, how do you think about measuring the business impact of all of these investments, right? But in many cases, you initially need to have significant investments first.
True. I mean, we are in the very lucky situation that our profit levels really look great. So we do have money to invest. We need to make sure we have a great future, and there we need to invest into the future. That is clear. I would warn everybody to calculate business cases for months and years, because the technology is advancing so fast. So we need to find a good balance between calculating a solid business case, because this is needed, especially for the larger investments, but also trusting our gut feeling and trusting ourselves how quick AI can advance, how quick technology can advance, that some business cases that might be zero at the moment might be a real business case in the future. Because we need to do the investments now that's going to be active in 1-2 years from now. And the big task is to imagine a technology that's not yet there. But we need to prepare for this, and we can't always wait until it's there, because then, especially the Asian competition, China will be at a point where we can't catch up anymore. And that's probably also the thing I brought back from China. they think differently about technology. They're super advanced. They have a speed we have hard time to catch up, even to understand how quick they are. And there we need to balance our approach of a risk-averse approach with not throwing money out of the window. And that's a leadership task.
Yeah. Zooming in a little bit more again, back to your role, your work, and you shared, I think, plenty of great everyday examples how you interact with AI. I mean, particularly in strategy, particularly in a leadership role, it's a lot about decision making. And I think many of the use cases we see right now, they're AI is maybe like an assistant, maybe a junior role. So do you see an AI agent that supports you moving from junior to really being an eye-to-eye sparring partner to maybe at one point even getting the autonomy to make decisions in a certain scope? Do you maybe also see any limits to that?
I think in the end, the most critical decisions always have to be made by humans, because I would not trust an AI to come up, or I would not trust an AI to have a value system in a way that humans have it. That might be I might be risk averse at that point. But if I think about decisions, especially when we look into defense, for example, I really always like to have a human in the loop to make the last decision, and not completely leave it to AI. There will be situations where we can limit the decision room, and where we can make it safe and secure, and then we can give some autonomy to AI. And we already see that actually when we think about autonomous driving cars, they make their decisions, but it's a limited space, and we're pretty okay-ish to know what happens and what not. At least we need to set the boundaries that it's not going to get out of control.
Mhm. Another interesting aspect is how we perceive AI, right? And how it comes into our everyday interactions. I think right now a lot of use cases are still, I'm going somewhere. Many use cases we refer to typically are these conversational use cases. I'm chatting now with my assistant there. Have you seen, I think you mentioned meeting notes. Have you seen AI also moving into maybe life situations? A couple of companies start to experiment that with that. An AI agent joining a meeting and maybe even communicating. Have you seen things like that where AI becomes more visual and apparent, more present in the actual live collaboration and conversation?
I've seen it just yesterday. Somehow the Copilot agent reminded me that the meeting should now come to an end, and there might still be a point open from the agenda which we haven't discussed. That was neat, actually, and that helped. So we're going to see how this will evolve. And again, here, I think we have to learn how we use that.
Yeah.
It should not be that AI is telling us exactly what to do and dominating the way we act, but it can be really useful. And again, here I can only encourage everybody to reserve time for AI learning. Learn how to get along with that. Otherwise, it's only going to bother you. And if you don't understand how you can best use it, it's difficult. If I only ask a question to ChatGPT or Copilot and do not do a proper prompting, then it's shit in, shit out. And then I might not get the answer I had wished for. We see AI coming up with non-true results. There's way to limit that, actually. So there's also a lot of capabilities and knowledge involved. How do I do proper prompting? And we need time to learn that. And I can only really encourage everybody to do that, because you also learn how difficult it sometimes is, what I can do, what I cannot do, how quick it evolves, and then also get a better understanding if you, for example, see a business case, is that realistic or not?
Yeah, yeah. That, I mean, that's a very personal journey for everyone, but critical part of AI literacy. also remaining in the driver's seat in some sense, right? I think you will still be accountable for the results of this. So you also might see sometimes like slides or texts or email summaries being sent around, and you
Exactly.
can see, okay, I assume you didn't write that. Yeah, and it's not always a
Exactly.
better experience for the opposite, at least that you're working with. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the future, and you mentioned it, right? You have a lot of ideas. It's probably one of my favorite questions in this format here, and that's about your dream agent. So if we could sort of like paint a picture of the perfect AI agent, don't think too much maybe of today's limitations in terms of data access or context the AI needs beyond that, or levels of autonomy. So what would be your dream agent if you imagine that one?
Oh, my dream agent will probably someone who accompanies me through the day. It does a lot of the simple tasks for me, but also helps me to understand, am I the best version of myself? Somebody to remind me if I get stressed out that I should maybe take a little break. Somebody who reminds me to reserve time for sports, to have healthy nutrition, and also to help me understand when I interact with other people, was that okay? Was that a good version of myself? What could I have done better to make sure um, in the end, people living with me, interacting with me, have a great experience. Because sometimes I personally get stressed out, and I know I'm not the best version of myself. So I could have somebody who helps me to get better from day to day.
Mhm. We have this AI agent canvas to sort of like structure these use cases. And also here we think about what kind of input does the agent need to do a good job, what would be the output, and what's the value. I think I have an idea of what value this has for you, but what kind of data would it need? It sounds like a very, is this like connected to your Fitbit health tracking apps, or how would you empower that agent?
Yeah, probably connected to the health data. It should be probably listen to what I do the whole day long. It should understand what are repeating tasks, and come up with proposals how he or she can help me on that, or what the AI could actually do for me. Um, might be somebody like being on an Apple Watch, being on a phone, because it needs to be really close to me.
Yeah. And probably also have an idea of um, like your personal goals, your ideas, right? Like defining the perfect version or the best version of yourself is probably also quite an individual definition. Yeah. Okay.
Very
Well,
true.
we will see. So we keep this You&AI conversations rather short. And I think it's going to be really interesting in each of those chats we have to just see in 6 to 9 months where things have progressed. This technology right now is so dynamic that I think many of the use cases I hear when I ask this question um, will not just be possible, but they will be there. So, yeah, maybe we can check in again in 9 months from now or so, and then we see where things have moved with AI in your professional life, but also at Siemens Energy.
Wonderful. Happy to do so. So very much looking forward to a bright future with AI, and hopefully AI is not at all taking over completely, but that we keep the human in the loop.
Fully agree. Let's keep that positive perspective on it. There's a lot to gain. Thank you very much for being here today, Katharina.
Thank you very much.
This was another episode of You&AI. Thank you for listening in. If you would like to hear more stories like this, I recommend you to subscribe to this podcast and visit workpath.com/AI. If you are driving the AI transformation in your own company, or if you are a leader who is interested in the dream agents we discuss here, we'd be happy to talk. And you can reach out via Johannes@workpath.com or via our website.